Welcome. And thank you for joining me for episode 12 of the Plant-Based Diet Benefits Podcast. I have a solo show ready for you guys today, and I want to talk about something that I would say most experts or people who are trying to coach others or help others won't say and or won't talk about, and that's my struggle on a plant-based diet. Now, most people have these amazing stories of how a plant-based diet has really helped them. And over the years, the plant-based diet has most definitely benefited me compared to the diet that I had before, but in no way has it been like a perfect diet or one that has fit my needs exactly. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that today and share with you guys my story or the struggles that I've had on a plant-based diet and kind of what action I've taken to improve my own health and what action I still have left to do. And in the end, I want to invite you guys to join me on this journey and kind of become like an accountability partner for me. You see, there's not that many vegans in my personal life, and I think it would be amazing to have a group of people together who want to improve their health, and there's various aspects to health, not just diet. And I think it'd be great for all of us to get together and chat about it, help each other out, cheer each other on, things like that. So let me go ahead and start into my story here. I'm going to go back 4 months ago, April 28th, 2019. So 4 months and 1 day from the time this podcast is being published. And what a great day it was. I woke up early that morning. I was super excited because I was going to go golfing with some family members of mine. And I don't get to go golfing too often. At the time, I was a dad of 3. And, a lot of the times on the weekends, I just want to hang out with my kids, I kind of feel guilty in a way if I want to, go golfing and have fun for myself and spend money on myself, as opposed to doing something with them. And so anyways, I was super excited that day. My brother had his birthday earlier in the month, and his daughter, my niece, paid our golf outing. So it was a pretty cool birthday present for him. And my cousin also joined us, and we went out and played around at golf. And if my brother and cousin are listening, no surprise, I had the best outing of the day. Thank you very much. I appreciate that they, let me win the way that they do. And later on that day, I went home. I had plenty of energy, which is fantastic. That's what a lot of people on a plant-based diet rave about, is the amount of energy that they have. And I played some catch with my kids, not outside. I was inside. We have these like balls that they've gotten from like Peter Piper Pizza and places like that after, end of season baseball parties. And we throw these balls around the house because they like pretty much won't break anything. And so we were playing some catch with the kids. It was a lot of fun that day with my boys and my daughter, Madeline. At the time, she's not really in the playing catch phase, but she was there. And but the most exciting part of the day still hadn't come. You see, that night we were scheduled to go to the hospital to have our 4th kiddo. We were going to have a scheduled delivery, and that night we were going to drop the kids off at my parents' house, so that way, we don't have to worry about anybody babysitting them. They could just have a sleepover there, which was a lot of fun for them. And so we went and dropped the kids off. Then we came home, just my wife and I, to await the call from the hospital to say, hey, it's time to come on in. Let's have a baby. And that eventually came. It was early in the morning. We got into the hospital across the side of town, and then the waiting game started, right, for the delivery of our 4th child. His name is Wyatt, and he is by far the most awesome 4-month-old kid. His first 4 months of life have been a piece of cake. Maybe it's because it's our 4th kiddo and we aren't really surprised by anything at this point, but the kid eats, sleeps, does his business, and rarely cries. He loves playing with toys now. Trying to move those hands and grasp stuff. That's the kind of the phase he's in, and he's just a very easygoing kid. We're lucky, especially because of all the issues that I've had since his birth, which I'm going to get into next. So we had Wyatt. He was delivered, that day on April 29th, like midday. My wife will give me a hard time for not remembering the exact time of his birth, but he was born. And over that next day or two in the hospital, I needed to take care of Wyatt a lot on my own. And I started to feel like this tingling in my fingers. I wasn't really sure why. It was like kind of that morning, even before he was born, my pinky and ring finger on my dominant hand, my right hand, started kind of getting tingly, like as if your foot's falling asleep, that kind of feeling. And just kind of played it off. But by the time that we left the hospital, after feeding Wyatt quite a few times, and having my elbow kind of in a bent position, from like burping him or getting horrible sleep on the chairs that they have there, my elbow just kind of started bothering me a little bit of pain, like right in my elbow, and then my pinky and ring finger had pretty much gone numb, as well as part of the palm of my hand. And at that point in time, we have a newborn. We have 3 other kids at home, and I was kind of placing again them as my priority, and told myself, well, if it doesn't go away in a couple of days, then I'll do something about it. And sure enough, over the next couple of days, my elbow started hurting more and more. And I went in to see the doctor about it. And over the next couple of weeks, we eventually figured out what was going on. My doctors told me that I had what's called cubital tunnel syndrome. It is very similar to carpal tunnel syndrome, but it's in the elbow joint, and it's a different nerve. It's the ulnar nerve that goes from your neck all the way out to your ring and the outside of your pinky finger, your pinky finger and the outside of your ring finger. And basically what happens is this nerve, the ulnar nerve, which is like if you ever hit your elbow and say you had your funny bone was hit and your whole arm kind of gets tingly, it's that nerve. And what happened is that nerve got pinched somehow, and it's basically no longer sending like the signals effectively from my brain all the way out to my fingers. And so they told me that I just needed to rest, like don't do anything with your arm, pretty much. And which is, if you have 4 kids, especially with a newborn, I don't know exactly how you can get by with only one arm, when you're used to having 2, I should say. And so I tried to rest my arm as much as I could. And luckily I had some time off of work. I had 6 weeks of paternity leave. Very grateful that my work, or my employer, my day job provides that. And so I spent 6 weeks at home with my newborn and the rest of the kids. The last 4 weeks or so of that, or maybe 3 weeks, was during summer break as well, which was really cool. I got to spend a lot of time with my kids. And the unfortunate side of it all was I was able to kind of help out and do things with the older ones, but Wyatt, my newborn, I couldn't really hold him. I couldn't, hold him with my left arm and hold a bottle with my right arm, or try to burp him while I was feeding him. So the only time I really got to hold him is if he was just placed in my arms while I'm sitting on the couch or something for a little bit. And I'll be honest with you, that was really tough. I have really good memories of waking up in the middle of the night and feeding my child with my oldest 3, and I didn't get to do that. And you wouldn't expect to be sad over that, but there's that sense of pride and comfort that you're able to give to the child, while they're crying in the middle of the night. I missed out on that. I didn't get to do that with Wyatt, and he's sleeping through the night now. So I'll never be able to do that again, really. That part's tough. It's really tough not being there for your kiddo. And I have this history of being really hard on myself and demanding a lot from myself. I have this internal voice in my head that tells me I'm not good enough for my kids. I'm not good enough for my wife. I'm not good enough for work. I'm not good enough for my parents. I'm not good enough for my siblings. It's something that happens quite often, this feeling of self-worth or lack thereof, self-worth. And that's something that I've had to deal with for a very long time. Last year, I actually went to like a therapist to talk about it. And I'll be honest with you, that really helped out a lot. And I acknowledge it now, which is really good. Because I can kind of sense when it's happening, and I can do some internal talk to get out of that sense of I'm not good enough. It's a pattern that comes up for me. And but it happened again, right? Like I wasn't able to really be the dad I wanted to be while I was out on the 6 weeks of paternity leave. My arm didn't get better. It only continued to get worse. I was in a brace where I couldn't even bend my elbow. Like it was preventing me from bending my elbow, which is what was supposed to help it heal, and it never did. I went back to my day job after 6 weeks, and having to move my arm around a lot more because I wasn't really resting it anymore. I was, moving the mouse on my from a computer or typing on the keyboard a lot more, and it just continued to get worse and worse. I at some point I kind of didn't even do a podcast episode, or I made a very brief video about it because I couldn't even edit a video for you guys. And but back at work, I started talking to my employer, and I'm like, it's kind of getting worse and worse after the long days. Or I woke up and in the morning it would just hurt so bad, so I'd come into work a little bit late. And eventually I started talking to my orthopedic surgeon doctor, and we decided that it would be necessary for me to have surgery on my arm, which is just crazy, right? Like I couldn't get my arm to heal. And when I was talking to him, I'm like, well, what's even the cause of this thing? And it basically told me it was due to, quote, overuse. And doing some research on it, and as well as talking to my doctor, it basically came down to my elbow becoming too inflamed, and it therefore pinched the nerve. And once my body recognized that the nerve was kind of in trouble, my immune system sent an inflammatory response to that area to try to fight what was hurting my nerve, and it just continued to get kind of worse and worse. I was trying to do a lot of things like taking certain medications that are anti-inflammatory to reduce the levels of inflammation, and it just never happened. So I thought it was kind of crazy, even before I had the surgery, I'm like, what, I'm going to try a very high anti-inflammatory diet. Dr. Brooke Goldner, who's been on our show, recommends or has a protocol for a very anti-inflammatory diet. So I was like, I'm going to give it a try. To be quite honest with you, I didn't do very good at it. I did have some smoothies, like our green smoothies in the morning, like for breakfast or lunch, snacks throughout the day and stuff. But then at night I, would have inflammatory foods. So it kind of canceled each other out. I never really saw much of an improvement, and eventually ended up having my surgery. And that was about 6 weeks ago when I had surgery on my arm. And the first couple of weeks I was in a splint and had a big soft cast on my arm, so I couldn't even move it. I was in quite a bit of pain. And I just kind of laid there in bed, and gave me a lot of time to think. And now that it's been 4 months since my son was born, I've had a lot of time to think about the status of my health and this issue with my arm being, due to chronic levels of inflammation. and really second guess like what my diet was, and are there other factors that might be increasing the inflammation of my diet. And I'll be honest with you, Dr. Goldner's been a lot of help. I've had a chance to read her newest book about autoimmune diseases, which I'll link to in the show notes of this page. It's a fantastic book. It just came out like while I was laying in bed for my surgery. Her book came out, I bought it, and I read it within a matter of a couple of days. It's a really good book, and I believe it's called Goodbye Autoimmune Disease. And the really cool thing about this book was that it wasn't just about the nutrition that she recommends, but it had a lot of really, really great advice about the mental aspects of getting healthy. And I've started to realize that there are multiple variables for these issues I've been having with the chronic inflammation. Part of it is the diet. I have been including oil, for example, in my diet. I haven't really shied away from it. But a lot of vegetable oils are inflammatory, so I probably needed to, kind of get those out of the diet. And so I've had a lot of processed foods, which doesn't help. I haven't ate like a whole foods plant-based diet. It's been more of just a standard vegan diet, but I'll go into that a little bit more. But there's the food aspect of it, and then there's also the mental health aspect of it. That feeling of I'm not good enough adds to the amount of stress and pressure that I put on myself. And stress creates a lot of inflammation in the body as well. It kind of activates that fight or flight response, and if you have chronic levels of stress in your life, then your body's going to be inflamed as well. So I realized I need to kind of attack this from two angles, and I decided to change up my diet and follow Dr. Goldner's protocol as closely as I could, because based off of what I've learned from her, as well as the Mastering Raw Food Nutrition Educator certification that I have with eating or learning all about just 100% raw, whole food, plant-based diets, I realized that's when I've always felt my best. And that's where I want to pick up the rest of this conversation, chat a little bit about my dietary history, where I've come from, what I am doing now. Hopefully it will inspire any of you guys who have followed a similar path as me. Talk a little bit more about the mental aspects of what I'm trying to do to improve my stress management, and go from there. So let's talk about my history of diet first. So I've always believed, and this has been taught to me, that there's this wide spectrum of approaches to diet. Say on the left, you could have like the worst diet possible for you, and on the right, you could have the best diet possible for you. And I say for you because it really is up to your own personal bio-individuality. If you have celiac disease, for example, then the healthiest diet for you wouldn't include bread, or any other gluten-containing products, right? So it really is customized to you. But there are generalities that can be made, and one of the worst diets for you is a very highly processed and sugar, just intense amount of sugars that are on the standard American diet. And there's kind of variable or variations in the standard American diet. I think you can eat a quote standard American diet, but maybe not be addicted to sodas or Cokes, right? Colas, depending on where you are from in the U.S., that you kind of call it something different. But there's variations there, but still, standard American diet, I consider it one of the worst diets that we have access to. And on, at least for me, the healthiest diet that I've experienced has been the raw, whole food, plant-based diet. The more raw, whole food, plant-based foods that I include in my diet, the better I feel. And everywhere in between those two include things like the Mediterranean diet or vegetarian diet, vegan diets, a cooked whole food plant-based diet. There's, keto diets and Atkins diets and all kinds of other diets that are somewhere in between the worst diet and the best diet for everybody, if I were to think about it in general terms. And I have had different diets all along that spectrum, and I think it's important for everybody to make a decision, a conscious decision in their brain as to where on that spectrum of health do they want to be. And I've made changes in my decisions, right? I've made a conscious choice to eat on a different side of that spectrum over the years, and want to give you some examples. So I was raised on a standard American diet. I ate that way for a couple of decades, and I am lucky to say that it wasn't a very highly processed, or it didn't contain a lot of sugar. I mean, sure, I had sodas, but I wasn't like addicted to sugar. And we ate a lot of home cooked meals. Some of them may have been, some of the ingredients were packaged, but it wasn't, all processed. I grew up eating a lot of white meat. My dad's side of the family's been in the poultry business for generations. So chicken is readily available to us. And ate a lot of chicken and then, some vegetables, not much. But there's usually some sort of starch to go along with it, like mashed potatoes or rice, beans, whatever the case may be. But during this time when I was eating the standard American diet, I also ate a whole lot of chicken wings at sports clubs, sports bars that I'd go to. I'd drink a lot of beer. I had, in my early 20s, a lot of issues with alcohol. I was never, in my mind, I was never really like a full-blown alcoholic, but I still had an addiction to it. My early 20s, it was pretty bad, but by the time I hit 30, it wasn't really as bad. I didn't drink as frequently, but when I did, I probably had too much. And I'd say maybe 10 years ago or so, I made a switch to start eating like a Mediterranean based diet. My employer had brought this doctor. I can't remember the name of the book that he wrote, but he came and he spoke to us a lot about eating natural foods. He recommended a Mediterranean diet based off all the research that's been done. And one of his phrases that will just never escape me was that if it had a mommy or daddy, then you can eat it. If it didn't have a mommy or daddy, then don't eat it. And basically his message was that if it was something that was man-made, a processed food ingredient, then don't consume it. But if it came from nature, whether that be from plants or from animals, then have at it, So, and he also recommended having things in their natural form. So like you'd recommend whole milk instead of skim milk. He believed that having a little bit of milk, like to finish off your meal, would keep you satisfied longer, and you wouldn't need to eat a snack before dinner if you had that milk during lunch, or the cheese during lunch. And my wife and I started eating this way, and really enjoyed it. We ended up making a whole lot of more meals from home, from scratch. But I'll be honest, it included a lot of dairy products, especially cheese. I've always really enjoyed cheese, so I'd make my own macaroni and cheese from home. I remember giving my brother-in-law my homemade mac and cheese recipe, because we both really enjoyed it. And eventually I decided to switch to a vegan diet. And I talk about this a little bit in episode 2 of the Plant-Based Diet Benefits podcast with my friend Adam. And but long story short, I started wanting to get into gardening, and watched a lot of gardening YouTube videos of another gardener here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. And he was vegan. He eventually came out with a video stating the top 10 reasons why he was vegan. And it all just made logical sense to me. I couldn't really make an argument against what he was saying. So when something like that is logic-based information, and I can't think of a reason not to do it, I talk to my wife, and I'm like, I just need to give it a try. Let's just give this vegan diet a try for 30 days. I watched that video, and we had that talk in December of 2015, and in January of 2016, we decided to try out a vegan diet for the first 30 days. And at this point, it was a true vegan diet, so we included processed foods, which was kind of the opposite, right, of that Mediterranean diet that we were just coming from. Like we would have mock chicken and mock beef, like little meat crumbles, and we tried to just like replace chicken and fish with tofu and tempeh and seitan, and for the most part, actually, it worked out really well. My digestion improved during that month. I had more energy. By the time that like the spring season came around, my allergies were like going away. They weren't really affecting me anymore, which was huge for me. But the biggest thing was probably my digestion. Like before that, and I failed to mention this, but I had IBS. Like I would, in stressful situations, my stomach would really act up on me. And oftentimes, if I was like way overconsumed with stress, then I would also get sick. I have a tendency to get strep throat when I am too sick or too stressed. And so we tried out this vegan diet for 30 days, and I just started feeling a whole lot better. And we did this 30-day vegan challenge. There's a book out there. And I'll link to that in the show notes too. I can never remember the author's name. And that book was very, very helpful. I was all alone. I knew nothing about like the vegan or plant-based Facebook groups. I really wasn't on Facebook that much at that point. And I pretty much only had this one book to tell me or answer a lot of the questions I had. All that in YouTube videos. So I started learning, like where do I get protein from on a vegan diet, or how do I get calcium if I'm not having dairy products, right? Like all those typical things that most people start asking when they hear about a plant-based diet. And I am kind of a nerd. I love to learn things. I love to learn new things, and when I really have a passion for something, I kind of have to learn everything about it. And so I went and signed up for this Mastering Raw Food Nutrition course, which focuses on the scientific studies regarding raw foods, and some cooked as well, like plant-based diet, and the benefits of this type of diet over the standard American diet. And it was a very eye-opening course. My diet started to change again. So instead of having a lot of cooked food, I started to include more and more raw food in my diet. I got a Vitamix blender so I can make smoothies. I bought a Tri-Best slow start juicer so that way I could make juices in the morning, these just delicious green juices. And I started eating a very high raw diet. And it was raw until dinner time, really. And then once dinner time came, then I would eat some cooked food that the rest of the family is having. I also stopped drinking alcohol during this time. So January 2017, I stopped drinking alcohol. I've been sober since, which is fantastic. That's over 2.5 years being sober, and I don't even think about having alcohol anymore. It's really great. I know it's benefiting my health. But anyways, I was eating a lot of raw foods during this time, and I started losing a ton of weight. Well, when I first went vegan, I started losing weight too, but I lost even more weight once I started including raw foods. And my diet, or my weight from pre-vegan, was like 180 pounds or so. And then it dropped all the way down to like 150 once I started eating raw foods, or primarily raw food diet except for dinner. And I was really feeling great. I finished up that course. I started blogging quite a bit, even though I don't have an active blog anymore. And started trying to teach people as much as I could about this diet. And over time, I just slowly started getting away from it. I didn't have the time to juice. or make juice, as much as I used to. So instead of juice in the morning, I would have some oatmeal with fruit, and it was a really good breakfast. I felt full on it, but I lost the juice. And then after that, we started having, just leftovers instead of smoothies for lunch. And slowly over time, I started incorporating more and more cooked food into my diet. And over that same period of time, I slowly started to gain weight until I got up to like 100, the low 170s. So I never gained all the way back to 180, but the low 170s. And that's where I was, about four months ago or so. And that leads me to kind of my decisions to start changing up my diet after my surgery. So I was really eating a vegan diet up until about a month ago. I say vegan, not whole foods plant-based, because I still had a lot of processed foods in there. We use white flour and different things like that. Never really use wheat. And one thing I want to kind of talk about again is this concept of not being good enough, like that self-worth. That's when I started realizing that a lot of this stuff is in my head. Was in 2018 on this vegan diet, and I've since learned a lot about having a diet very rich in omega-3 fatty acids that helps with stress management and things like that. And I think it started to help me out following my most recent change in diet. So let's talk about that now. So after I read Dr. Goldner's book, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, as I was laying there in bed a couple of weeks after having surgery on my arm, I told myself that once my arm was a little bit better and I could chop up some vegetables, I was going to start her protocol of having these smoothies in the morning that are just absolutely packed with greens and other cruciferous vegetables, some water, half a cup of flax seeds, which sounds like a lot, but it's really needed. Half a cup of flax seeds, and then fruit to top it off, which I've pretty much just been using bananas. That's my sweetener of choice. And then for dinner, having like salads, 100% raw food on this protocol, on this healing protocol. And, on those salads, it's been a mix. I've had salads on some nights, and then just like raw meals another, like tacos or sushi, raw sushi and things like that. And I ran across some obstacles on this diet, and I want to kind of talk to you guys about that, because it's everybody, when they switch up their diet, they're going to have certain things that make it difficult on them. And I want to let you guys know, like, you aren't alone, right? Like, everybody's going to have cravings, and there's logistical challenges and in regards to switching up your diet. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what I've done, and hopefully it'll help you guys if you decide to switch up your diet as well. But these are some of the biggest obstacles that I've experienced by switching up my diet to a raw, whole foods, plant-based diet. The biggest of which affects me mentally, or emotionally, I should say, is being different than the family. Like, every single meal that I've had for the last 3 weeks has been different than what my family has had. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks, everything has been different. And it gives me this feeling of isolation, which is just crazy, because I'm sitting there right next to them, I'm talking to them, I'm interacting with them, I'm laughing with them, but yet I still feel like I'm alone at times because I'm eating differently than them. And that's been something that I've had to overcome. Maybe you guys won't feel that way, but it makes me feel that way sometimes. But knowing that what I'm doing is for my own health, and it's so that way I can be a better dad for them and a better husband for my wife, it inspires me to keep going. And I've kind of gotten accustomed to this. I sat down before I switched over to this diet, and I just had to realize that I'm not alone. When I'm sitting there next to my family, it's a choice that I'm making, and as long as you're eating together, you guys are together. So I've had different different food than them. It's something that's been a little bit difficult at times. And when it has been most difficult is when we go out to eat. So I've gone out to eat at some of my favorite restaurants and not ate there. So having some, like Mexican food or other restaurants or events we've gone to, like family events, family gatherings, and brought a salad instead of, or a smoothie instead of eating what they had there, has been difficult. But it's something I've just kind of communicated with my external family, right? Like they've never seen me bring a salad to a family gathering before. So just tell them, hey, I'm giving this thing a try for a little bit, see if it'll help, cure my arm quicker. And they're like, oh, okay, sounds good. You don't have to think too much into it. And just let them know it's something you're giving it a try, see what happens. Logistically, though, there have been some difficulties, and I knew that this was going to be the hardest part about being on a raw, whole food, plant-based diet for me. And I spoke with my wife about this before even going on the diet, because she does all of the grocery shopping for our family. And I've tried to eat more and more raw foods in the past because I know intuitively that raw foods feel good to me. I just always feel healthier when I eat more raw foods. So I decided to sign up for a organic produce boxes, organic produce that will pretty much give me all the food I need for a week-long period of time. And by ordering this, even though it may be a little bit more expensive than the food we'd get at the grocery store, it's made it so much easier because my wife doesn't have to worry about ordering any food for me from the grocery store, except for like a ton of bananas, because I eat at least 4 bananas every day, and avocados, because avocados are amazing on salad. And other than that, I've been able to order all my own food each week through this organic produce company. And it's really neat because, they have like these add-ons for just greens, just dark green leafy vegetables like kale and Swiss chard. So I've been getting quite a bit of that. And then there's like these 12 different items in a produce box. And they have one that's designed for people who like to eat vegetable or drink vegetable juice. It's like a fruit and vegetable juice box, which goes pretty well with eating a raw food diet because it doesn't have like potatoes and onions and things like that in it that I would normally have to cook. So it's turned out really good, and it's made it kind of easy. Like I haven't really had to plan out my meals and like figure out what I want to get from the grocery store. It's just I got this box of produce and I need to try to figure out how to eat it all over the next week. And it's been a lot of fun. The smoothies have varied a little bit from week to week, and then my salads have been a little bit different. So one night I might have like a bunch of dark green leafy vegetables with the dressing and a couple of pears and cucumber, something like that sliced up. And then the next day it might be the same thing, but instead of pears, it's strawberries. And it's been really good. I've really enjoyed the salads coming from it, which for me is a really big deal because I just despised salad before. And that ordering the food through that company has been really, really helpful. So if you have something like that in your neighborhood, then take advantage of that and have fun trying to come up with these different meals. Like tonight, for example, I'm going to be taking some carrots and avocado and cucumber and kale, like the lacinato or dinosaur kale, and just chopping all that into thin strips and making sushi out of it, which I'm really excited about because my wife made sushi with, like rice and our normal veggie sushi for lunch today. And so I've just been craving sushi. So that gets me onto my next topic, right? One of the biggest obstacles that I've had to face over the last 3 weeks, and that's cravings for cooked food. And this happened a lot, especially in like the second week, as my wife was cooking up food for the rest of the family. And it's just like, oh my gosh, the smells from the food, having like mushroom stroganoff and my wife makes up this really good big ziti now that the kids love that just tastes really good. And the sushi with the rice, she's been making up quite a bit. She's a fan of sushi too. And then Chinese food. Like I really, really like Chinese food. I like having some like kung pao tofu or ma pao tofu. And if anybody knows like a raw version of ma pao tofu, then please let me know. That's like one of my favorite order in, like delivery Chinese food meals that we would have all the time. And now I haven't really had it at all. I'll be honest with you. Over the last few weeks, I did have it once. I couldn't get past the craving, but I didn't consider it like me cheating on my diet. I want to talk about that just a little bit. Like, if you go off plan on a new diet, don't tell yourself that you're cheating, because like cheating implies maybe that you avoided the consequences of it. So, like cheating on a test or something like that, you still got good results from the test. But cheating on your diet, you're still making a conscious choice to eat foods that maybe aren't 100% beneficial for you. So, I made the choice. I'm like, I'm okay if I have this meal, even if it's not the most optimal food for me. It might set me back a day or two on recovery, but I wanted that ma pao tofu so bad. And one of the other things I want to talk about was in terms of the obstacles, was kind of adjusting to this raw food from a digestion perspective. My stomach kind of had a really hard time with the salads right off the bat. The smoothies were okay, because the blender, it chops everything up for you. So everything's kind of already in little tiny pieces, and my stomach was able to handle that just fine. But eating like the raw salads, I've always had a problem digesting raw salads, which is why I've never been a fan of them. And I started having issues like in the first week or so of eating these raw salads. My stomach just really didn't like them. My stomach felt upset and bloated. It's like burping up a bunch of this stuff. I had bad odors coming out both ends, so to speak, on eating these salads. They just really don't digest well for me. And I was like, man, I don't want to give this up. I want to keep going with it. And so I asked around, tried to get some feedback from other people who have been on this similar path of introducing raw foods into their diet. And they recommended I start taking some digestive enzymes to help digest the food while it's there in my stomach, because basically my stomach hasn't been able to handle it. So I started taking these digestive enzymes, and I am so incredibly happy that I did, because like night and day, once I started taking one of these enzymes before every smoothie or every salad, it just works wonders in terms of digesting my food. I'm rarely burping up my food anymore. Like, it's really settling much better. And my digestion has improved greatly. Like, I'm never bloated. Like I said, I'm not burping really anymore. The odor issues that I was having in terms of like flatulence and stuff like that just went away. It's not a problem anymore. And then, nobody likes talking about it, but my bowel movements have been so much better since I started to include those digestive enzymes too. So, if you're going to try this approach and you start having issues, not everybody does, but if you do, then give that a try. I already took probiotics, so that wasn't helping it, because probiotics help you more in your intestinal tract, not in your stomach. So the digestive enzymes help out in the stomach. And so that kind of leads me into the benefits of this raw whole food, plant-based diet that I've had. Like I mentioned, now, after taking those enzymes, my digestion has been just on par. There's been 2 meals that I ate that were cooked on back-to-back nights. One of those was that ma pao I told you about. And the other one was over at Pita Jungle. I had hummus with chips. And all these cooked meals that I've had just have not settled well with me. I've become bloated and things like that. So it's kind of interesting to see my body react so immediately to cooked food. So staying on the raw food, plant-based diet, my digestion's really been on par. And another benefit, and I mentioned kind of the odor in terms of flatulence and things like that, but just general like body odor has greatly improved. I haven't really worn deodorant every single day, and I just have this feeling of cleanliness that I didn't have before. It's really interesting, the difference. And that's in the middle of a Phoenix summer too, which is amazing. So that's a huge benefit. I just don't feel I just don't feel like I need to take a shower every couple hours or anything like that. So it's really nice. I really enjoy that. Another thing that I've really benefited on this diet is having just like a higher level of energy. And I don't mean like all day long I'm super pumped and have so much energy. That's a false expectation or understanding of what I'm saying. But my energy has lasted longer. So later on into the night, like when I'm getting my kids ready for bed or even after they go to bed, I have energy then. And I normally don't. So I'm really enjoying that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not like going on mile-long runs after I get the kids into bed, but I'm not completely exhausted. And that's awesome. Now, in terms of weight loss, I'm sure everybody's going to want to know about that. I have experienced weight loss, which is really good. I've lost 7 pounds in 3 weeks. It's been kind of interesting. I lost 5 pounds the first week. The second week, I didn't lose anything. And then this last week, I've lost 2 pounds. So 7 pounds in total. I've gone from 169 to 162. And now my BMI is in, like mid 23s, which is good. It's a very healthy BMI. I do think I could probably lose a little bit more weight. My body fat percentage has gone from 20% to 19%. So, I think that it could get a lot closer to like 15. My muscle percentage went from 14 to 15. I don't really think I've gained any muscle, just percentage wise, since I've lost weight. The muscle that is there is a higher percentage now. And one of the interesting things is that my like water percentage, how much water is in my body, has always been really low. And if I'm out in the sun for too long, I get really dehydrated. And my water percentage has always been like 49, 50, and it's increased to like 51, 52. I know it's only a couple percent, but it's really neat to see that. I'm kind of curious to see if it keeps going up. One of the things about Dr. Goldner's protocol too is that you have to drink like a lot of water every day, at least 96 ounces of water, but hopefully 128 ounces, which is a gallon of water every day. And I've gotten in between that range every single day, most days all the way to the whole gallon. So it's really neat to see kind of like my water levels go up. And if you're wondering how I know all these percentages, I track them on a daily basis just to kind of test out this dietary approach. And I do it with my cardio scale. I'll link to that in the show notes as well. It's a really cool scale. It is a little bit pricey, but it gives you like your fat percentage, your muscle percentage, your bone mass percentage, and water percentage. And then it'll graph it all out for you in an app and stuff. It's really neat. And it's been kind of interesting too, because my weight has gone up on days where I eat cooked food, like the morning after. And then it'll drop back down again after I have raw food again. It's been kind of neat to see. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the benefits for me personally. But one of the coolest things, and the reason why I have this podcast and I talk about it with my family and friends probably too often, is I really think that eating healthy is important. And I try to set a good example for other people to eat healthy. And as I made up my salad the other night, I had probably made too much. So I grabbed the salad I didn't want to eat, and I put it in little bowls, and I served it up to my family, to my wife and my 2 boys, my oldest boys. And one kid, one of my boys, Evan, my 5-year-old, took one look at it and was like, "No, thank you. I don't care for kale," which I understand. There was like kale, apples, and cucumber in the salad. And And he was like, no, thanks. But my oldest son, James, was all about it. And he almost finished the whole little, it was a tiny bowl. It's like one of the, ramekin. But he sat there and ate it. He was just enjoying his kale with the dressing on it that he's really liked. And then my wife had some of the salad too, and ate the leftovers that weren't eaten by the boys. So I'm really happy about that. Even if it's a tiny little impact, it's still an impact, and it's really cool to see that they've kind of joined me a little bit there and had some salad with me that night. It was really cool. A lot of the reasons for like these benefits that I've had, I think it's been because of like a higher fiber food. If you don't know, a lot of the raw foods, since I'm not including oil or some of these processed foods that maybe are a little bit more higher in calories, a lot of the raw foods are low calorie foods. So I have to eat a lot of food in order to get the energy I need, and a lot of food equates to a whole lot of fiber if you're eating this way. So I've had a lot of fiber. That's really, I think, been a key for me in terms of my digestion, along with those digestive enzymes I've told you about. And, the raw food, it's just all the vitamins and minerals are there. Nothing's getting destroyed from the cooking process. And I could talk about that in a later episode as well. There's a lot of research that's been done about vitamins that get lost in the cooking process. Minerals are always there. Minerals stay intact. But depending on how you cook it, you may just move the minerals out of the food and into the cooking liquid, for example. But anyways, I'm feeling great on this diet. I wanted to share that with you guys, and then talk a little bit about where to next for me, because that's my update as of right now. But what's in my head for going forward? And as of right now, I'm going to continue on this raw food diet, Dr. Goldner healing protocol, as best as I can, and decide at some point if I decide to add in cooked foods. I think the only reason why I'll do that is if I want to stabilize my weight a little bit. So as of right now, I'm still losing weight. I don't know if I want to drop all the way back down to 150 pounds. So if I am not able to just simply eat the high volume of raw foods, then I may incorporate something that's a little bit more calorie dense, like tofu or something like that. Maybe some cooked potatoes, some beans, something that is still a whole food. I consider tofu a whole food. Something that's still a whole food that would just give me more calories. And the other reason is if I decide to start building some muscle. So right now I'm a very lean guy. I don't have a lot of muscle on me. But if I drop down to 155 or something like that, and become very lean, then I'm going to want to build up some muscle, and hopefully I can share that journey with you guys as well. I believe you guys know this as well, but I actually started up at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to become a health coach, to become a certified health coach. And I'm going to continue learning through them. I'm learning a lot in terms of the mental sides of a diet, and I hope to share that knowledge I've gained with you guys as I improve my own health. At the start of this podcast, I know I've been talking to you guys for a while now, but at the start of this podcast, I was talking about the mental issues of self-worth that I have, and I'm learning a lot in this IIN training to kind of value my self-worth a little bit higher and take some time for myself. And I want to ask you guys, I want to start interacting with you all more. I want to know what would be most helpful for you guys, my listeners, in upcoming episodes and chats on like Facebook or Patreon, which is where my private community is. So let me know. Do you guys want to talk more about some of these like mental or emotional type of issues, like stress management and concepts of self-worth and relationships? Do you guys want to talk about stuff like that as opposed to just the benefits of the diet, dietary choices, or maybe talking about becoming more physically active? So that's one thing that I want to do in the next few weeks here, is just become more physically active, ride my exercise bike a little bit more, do things that are normally considered just fun, activities that also include physical activity in order to get my activity level up. Do you guys want to talk about that? Like, how do we incorporate that into our busy daily lives? And then, of course, the different dietary approaches. Do we want to talk about, the complexities of a plant-based diet, whether it be cooked vegan diet or whole food plant-based diet, raw whole food plant-based? Regardless of what approach you take, there's important information to know about things like calorie density of foods to make sure that you are, getting enough calories in your diet, but not too much, especially if you're on a weight loss journey. Or do you want to talk about certain macronutrients like protein, fat, and carbohydrates, the benefits and cons of each, or certain micronutrients like calcium or B12, vitamin D, iron, all these different micronutrients that people say we're lacking on a vegan diet. I can go into depth on each of those as well. So leave some comments on the show notes page or Facebook page about this show. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the topics that you'd like to listen into. I really want to customize this for you guys. And I briefly mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast, but I want to have you guys kind of be an accountability partner for me, especially on some of the mindfulness type topics like meditation and things of that nature. So please let me know if that's something that you guys are interested in. I would really enjoy it if you guys join my Patreon community. If you go over to www.plantbaseddietbenefits.com/Patreon, that's Patreon. You'll be sent over to the Patreon community. And I'll be honest with you guys, at the time of this episode recording, there's nobody there. There's nobody in my community yet. But I want to get you guys to join my community, and I've made it incredibly cheap for you guys to do that. For the first 50 members that are joining the community, I'm charging what I think is the least amount you can charge on Patreon, which is a single $1 per month. I'm really not doing it for the money. I really want to just build a community and create some incentive for good behavior, so to speak, in this community. I know there's a lot of Facebook groups out there that people can join for free and get advice on a plant-based diet, but sometimes people sneak into those groups who maybe aren't as positive as I would like them to be. So I'm creating this Patreon community so that way I can kind of control that a little bit better. And if people have to financially commit to join the community, then they're oftentimes going to be a lot more positive and willing to help each other out. So please join me out there on this Patreon community. I'm hoping to do some more frequent like live events there in terms of like Q&A sessions. But also something as simple as maybe just doing some morning meditations, maybe a couple of days a week. I could do like a live video, just doing a meditation, listening to the audio of that meditation, like a guided meditation, or just having you guys meditate with me and then, talking about it afterwards. Let me know if that's something you guys are interested in, or what type of topics you'd like to cover there. But I really want it to be a place where you guys can hold me accountable, but I could also hold you guys accountable on your journey to better health as well. So again, head over there, www.plantbaseddietbenefits.com/Patreon, and let's help each other out. Let's create this community and improve our health. After all, the mission here at Plant-Based Diet Benefits is to improve our world one healthy person at a time. I'm not trying to improve the health of hundreds of thousands of people. I don't think I'm capable of doing that just yet, but I do want to improve the health of one person. And after that, improve the health of another person, and then another, and then another. And I want you guys to join me along for the ride. I want you to be that next person I help improve their health. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast so far. It's been a lot of fun for me. Hopefully it's been inspiring, because I've had a lot of people on the show that talk about their own personal health journeys. But as we continue on with this podcast, I want to have some more content-driven information. And that's why I'm asking you guys what you'd like to hear more about next. So with that, I'm going to end the episode on a affirmation that I'm going to start doing in the mornings. This is something that is going to help me really stay focused in on what I want to be as a human, as a person, how I want to see myself in the future. I'm going to end the episode with me saying my morning affirmation: Maybe it'll resonate with you guys. Maybe it won't. But here it is. And afterwards, I'll sign off. Thank you guys very much for joining me today. And I look forward to hearing you guys' responses. Lastly, before I forget, feel free to head over to our show notes page as well, plantbaseddietbenefits.com/12. And that will send you to our show notes page. Feel free to sign up for our newsletter there as well, so that way you don't miss out on these future episodes. And here it goes in terms of my affirmation. Don't judge me. This is my personal one. Feel free to make up your own. All right. Thank you guys. Take care. I am free to move my body as I wish. I am fit. I am strong. I am confident. I am in control of my emotions. I am happy. I am patient. I am calm. I am active with my kids. I am playing games with them. I have fun being around other people. I am a supportive and loving husband, and I am setting the example for what good health looks like. I am an inspiration to my family and friends. I'm an excellent health coach and educator. I am teaching others how to take care of their mental, emotional, and physical health. They need me. I need them. Let's do this.